How's everybody tonight?
Great.
Great.
So body armor, I had more people ask me what body armor meant than I think any other talk so far. So we just put it right on the bottom. So the whole goal is to build immunity from the inside out, which I think most people in here are already doing. Most people are already getting adjusted. They're already doing things that significantly improve their health. But when you think about this, a lot of the things that we relate to the immune system, maybe people think are normal. I mean, if you think about this, and if you would for me, just kind of raise your hand, but how many know somebody that's either themselves or close to them that either deals with breathing problems, allergies, sinus issues, some sort of digestive thing? How many people either feel that or know somebody that does? And I think that's, every person in this room. And did you know that many of those things, not only are they not normal, but they weren't common all that long ago. But what's happening is we have these huge inflammatory responses in our body that knock down your immune system, that negatively affect you or somebody you care about. And one of the big things today is to talk about things that you can do to improve that, to not have those issues, or whether it's you or somebody else, or maybe even if you've already seen improvement, to take that to a whole nother level. Because I know for a lot of people in here, you have seen throwing your allergy medicine away, or you have gotten rid of your reflux pills, or you have seen somebody who's had just radically better breathing, or again, I say, the most common thing that I explain to somebody is when they come in and they've been coming in for 6 months or a year or however long, and their neck is just killing them, and they say, well, my neck hasn't hurt this bad since I started. And instead of it being a pinched nerve, they'll have 20 or 30 or 40 swollen lymph nodes, and their body is fighting something off, and instead of being sick with the flu, instead of missing work, instead of being knocked out like they would have maybe a year prior, and now they can feel their body fighting it, yet they're not experiencing the whole body wear and tear, the full body ache. They're only feeling it where it comes in to their system, and that's a huge improvement in your immune system, yet not everybody's aware of it. So I'll tell you, Dr. Alex, Dr. Kyle, and I explain that at least every day, a lot of times, multiple times a day. And so what I'll tell you for this one, for all of you that already are coming in to get adjusted, I don't want to call it a review. We're calling it a little bit of a quiz. Who would have thought you came for a quiz? But there's a couple of things in here that the only other time we talked about it was the first time that you ever viewed your x-rays. So everybody should have a note sheet. And so there's only one question for the quiz, so it's not that hard. But if you would for me, go ahead and take a second and write down your best definition of what being healthy is. So go ahead, I promised only one question. Anybody? Go ahead and write, what's the best way that you can tell if you're going to write a 1-sentence or a 2-sentence definition? What's it take to be healthy, or what is really truly being healthy if you're going to define it in a medical dictionary or something like that? All those that have ever been had a gym membership, that have been to the water fountain and forgotten to lift their weights, this is kind of the same thing. Participation pays off. So go ahead and write that down. We'll get to it in about 5 slides here, but if you read that quote, it says, "For he who has health has hope, and he who has hope has everything." What it's really talking about is, no matter what our priority lists are, I can guarantee you, if you don't have your health, you can't do all of the things that your other priorities might be. And we've all seen that before, because I'll tell you, we've had people miss weeks at a time because their mother was in the hospital because they got pneumonia, or because they were diagnosed with acute appendicitis, or they had some sort of issue where they were in the hospital, they were knocked out, they got sick, they needed surgery, they had something happen where they lost their health, or worse, and you can't work if you're sick. You can't do these things. And so being healthy has so many benefits, and many of them that you don't necessarily feel. Now, this was a year ago. It's a new term. It's called Fearbola. You remember Ebola? Can you believe everybody's still alive? I mean, for how many news articles, how many things, how many planes, how many misdiagnoses. And if you think about that, if there would have been a vaccine that was developed, how many millions of people would have gone and got that to try and save their life because of this massive outbreak of Ebola? Previously, the swine flu, previously, the bird flu, previously, SARS, previously. Everybody remember all these? Everybody in here has been alive long enough to have seen 20 different news stories where the world was going to end because of this pandemic, and then it doesn't occur. And the reason we bring this up when we talk about immunity is human beings in general have this amazing ability to come in contact with a new disease and over a short period of time develop immunity to it. And so one thing that we always talk about, since we're talking about kids, our childhood, all people's immunity, but we're getting ready to go back to school here, and for those parents out there, or grandparents, you know how many kids miss a week or miss a couple days that first month of school as they go back, as they get around other kids, as they come in contact with different people and different germs and different things that maybe they're exposed to this summer. But just to talk about the vaccination schedules that are coming up, that's one of the things that actually affects your immune system. Now, we're not necessarily pro or against, but a couple of things that you want to consider to make your own choice here. First of all, is when you talk about everybody raise their hand when they talk about knowing somebody with allergies. Did you know that routine vaccination, getting your vaccines for meningitis, measles, mumps, all this kind of stuff, actually increases your risk of developing allergies over your life by 400 to 500%. So since the majority of our country had the routine vaccinations, think about how many more people develop. Now, how would that be? Well, one of the big things is, if you're trying to understand how these things work, whether it's the flu shot that you maybe still are getting, or whether your kids or your grandkids are getting it in school, is that by being given a weakened version of the virus, you have to stimulate your body to be more sensitive. So to stimulate your body to be more sensitive to certain things coming into it, that's where either aluminum or mercury is used. Most people in here have heard the negative effects of mercury. You wonder, they say they take it out, they put it back in. The reason that they're having trouble making these green vaccines is because they need some sort of very toxic chemical to stimulate an immune response to raise or heighten your nerve system to be more sensitive to that weakened virus so that you would create an immunity to it. So a green vaccine won't do that, which makes it ineffective. In fact, one of the drug companies just last year was sued because their measles vaccine was less than 90% effective. Less than 90%, so on average they only have to be 90% effective to be given. So not only do they have these other effects, but actually that's where people worry about these outbreaks, or why should everybody have and that's the reason. So not necessarily going into all the side effects, but that's what the heavy metals in those do. And so if it stimulates, or if it essentially damages your nerve system to the point where it makes you more sensitive to this virus, it also makes you more sensitive to allergens. It makes you more sensitive to other things that your body may be sensitive to, and that's how you can develop or increase your risk of these different things specifically. Now, talking about the immune system, you talk about the foundation. One study that was republished by Blue Cross Blue Shield showed that over the course of maintenance chiropractic, over the course of getting adjusted consistently, your immune system will progressively increase every single year for an average of up to about 5 years. Over the course of 5 years, every single year, if they drew a titer of your blood, your immune system would be stronger than the year before. You'd have more ability to recognize and get rid of whatever your body comes in contact with. Now, another thing that a lot of people are unaware of is being an anti-germ person. I don't know how many, I'd be scared to know how many people carry around Purell on their purse, have it in their car, use it every time they will go to the bathroom. It's actually not just a naturalist view. In fact, the American Medical Association only recommends that you use hand sanitizer if you're around a severely immunocompromised person, or when you're in the hospital. And the reason is being exposed to germs stimulates your immune system to create lifetime immunity. So every time you stop your body from creating immunity, you actually weaken your immune system. Every time you take an antibiotic, instead of letting your body fight off the virus or the bacteria, you're actually more likely to get sick again. If you want an easy example of that, you all know people that have taken their kids in for routine antibiotic after antibiotic after antibiotic after antibiotic for ear infections, and it's shown that statistically every time a child gets an antibiotic for an ear infection, they're more likely to get it again, and they're more likely to have a more serious complication because they're never building their own immunity to recognize it and kill it. So, antibiotics hand sanitizer, all these things. I had somebody, and Grandma's in here, maybe you've experienced this, but sometimes people are afraid to touch a baby if they're sick, right? Because they have a weaker immune system, or they can't hold their grandchild if they're sick or something like that. We kind of joke, and I'm just giving you a few examples, but for the entire first 13 months of my son's life, I've stuck my finger in his mouth every time I get home from the office. Now, how did he live? If germs kill everybody, how did he live? Because how many people have come in when they're sick, like they're supposed to boost their immune system, have done these things? Well, the difference is that exposure consistently over time, a small amount of germs over time, significantly increases your immune system and makes you stronger. So it's essential for children to be around germs. It's essential for you to expose your body to it. Now, if you're very sick, if you're immunocompromised, if you just had surgery, maybe that's not the time to be exposed to a whole bunch of germs. But outside of that, you should actually look forward to coming in contact with people. The difference between getting sick and being in contact with someone that's sick is how strong your immune system is. Otherwise, we'd all have the flu all winter, we'd all have colds all summer, and so when you typically get it is when you're more stressed, is when you're in a weakened state. Think about the holidays. How many people are more stressed, eat worse, get less sleep, get less adjustments, exercise less around the holidays? And people tend to get sick more often. In fact, your risk of a heart attack doubles the week after Christmas. It's the only week of the year that's true. Your risk of a heart attack doubles the week after Christmas because you have all these things, because your immune system's down, your body's not functioning as well, you're more likely to contract diseases, you're more likely to get sick. And so when you can reverse those things, if you can have less stress, eat better, exercise, get adjusted, all these things over time continue to build your immune system, and over several years you'll just see a radical difference. And then it comes back to the point where, like we started with, you may have a bunch of swollen lymph nodes, but you'll not get sick near as often. You may come in contact with things, but you're consistently building your immune system. For those people that don't know what I'm talking about, for the lymphatic system, it's much less understood, but your lymphatic system has as many vessels as your blood vessels. So think about how many vessels you have in your body. You can see your blood vessels sometimes in your legs. If you hold your elbow out, you can sometimes see your veins. Well, just like your heart pumps all this blood through your body, your lymphatic system is what fights infection. And so what it does, and actually this chart, next time you're in for an adjustment, take a look. We put, in our Maximized Living, put just a small part of this lymphatic system right in the front. What it looks like is a bunch of vessels, and then there are big circles every so often. And what happens, let's say you inhale a virus, and your body needs to fight it. The first spot it's going to fight it is right here in your sinuses and the upper part of your neck. And so what it does is it fills that big circle with the virus or with the infection, and when it runs out of space to hold that infection, it overflows into the next one, and the next one fills up, and it overflows into the next one, and the next one fills up. The easiest one to feel in kids is right here, those big glands, but actually you have dozens of them going down both sides of your neck. They go into your armpits, they go into your torso, they go throughout your entire body. In fact, to talk about another thing a lot of people are aware of, when somebody has, when they get tested for breast cancer, they show up positive, often it's the lymph nodes, their body's immune system, that's fighting it, and that's what are swollen. That's what they remove to test for the cancer, that's what they're removing. They're removing your immune system. So over a long period of time, the more you do it, the longer it works. Here's just a couple of examples. Does everybody remember Patrick Swayze? Sure, I don't know how many people were aware of this, but died of cancer in his early 50s. Had the healthy look, but yet the reason they use him and Farrah Fawcett as two examples because a couple of their books and a couple other things show that they had some things that they did perfect and they had some things that they did very poorly, and unfortunately it negatively affected his health severely. Now here's the answer to the one quiz question. So if you wrote it down, optimal answer is health is your body's ability to heal and function at 100% or as close to 100% as possible. your body's ability to heal and function. And so many, and you've heard this before, so many people judge it on pain, they judge it on sickness, they judge it if they feel good or not, yet you don't feel any major disease, you don't feel how well your immune system works, you don't feel these things, and therefore judging your health purely on feeling is one of the worst ways that you can. But in fact, focusing on your health builds this over time. So the three things that we'll talk about related to your immune system, what it is, what interferes with it, and how to build it. So we talked about there's really two parts to this immune system. One's the lymphatic system, which we already talked about. The other one is some that people are more comfortable. It's typically worked through your blood, and it's things like white blood cells. There's a whole bunch of other different things like natural killer cells and macrophages and things, but for all general purposes, if you just think of it, white blood cells are fighting through your bloodstream is another way that your immune system, and what happens is called an immune response. So immune response means the flu comes in, your body recognizes it, it creates an immune response, which means that any time that specific flu virus enters your body again, your body will recognize it quickly and kill it. The downside of certain interventions, and again the flu shot is a good example of that, is that when you inject a weakened virus and then have those heavy metals wake your body up, typically your immunity is only a few years, a maximum of around 10 years. It's a different style of immunity, so you don't create lifetime immunity, which is why it's recommended, let's say if you go to Africa, if you go on a mission trip, if you go somewhere else, why you have to get all the boosters from the vaccines you got when you were younger is because they wouldn't work when you were an adult because you never created a long-term immunity to it. That's what boosters are required for over a period of time. So if you come in contact with it and you don't intervene, if you let your body heal itself, then you create a long-term immune response. A couple other things to talk about. One is fever. So I've had people come in and they'll say, well, I take Dayquil because I thought it helped me get better faster, but anything that breaks your fever actually will cause you to be sick longer and also can slow your body's ability to create that long-term immunity. In fact, they've shown that a fever over 102 can kill every bacteria that they're aware of, or almost every bacteria. A fever over 103 can kill basically every virus out there. Now there's a few risks, and one of them is meningitis, that's one of the shots that they give. It's one of the things, it's essentially either a brain injury or certain types of meningitis are the majority of what can allow your body to go over 105 degrees. You would die if your body temperature broke 108 typically, but naturally your body temperature will be raised when you're sick to 104 or less because it's killing off whatever you contracted. It's like boiling water if you were camping to sterilize your utensils or sterilize your cooking or something like that. So here's some of the things that interfere with your immune system. In chiropractic school, they always call them the 3 T's: thoughts, traumas, and toxins. So you don't necessarily have to be in a car accident to be stressed, right? How many people have ever been stressed at work, or stressed before a birthday party, or stressed at a holiday, or stressed because somebody else in their family is sick, or stressed for something? Stress lowers your immune system in all 3 types. So whether it's emotional stress, whether it's physical stress, like the way that you work, or the way that you sit at your desk, or the way that you do something like that, and then toxicity. So toxicity significantly decreases your body's or your immune system's ability to fight. The more toxic somebody is, the more your body has to use energy to detoxify and can't focus as much energy on healing, on functioning, on your immune system. So the second one here is subluxation. So subluxation, I can review, but it's the medical definition for a misalignment of your spine, pinching a nerve, which of course could cause pain, but over time it would decrease function to wherever those nerves go. So it's going to affect specifically your body's ability to heal in certain areas. And think about, as somebody ages, you don't get a disease in every area of the body at the same time. You typically have one weakened organ or one weakened part of your body that causes the majority of the disease itself. So this can affect the function. And the last thing is sugar, processed foods, and really your digestive tract. So besides those other 2 things that we talked about, your lymphatic system and your blood, your digestive system is the other area where a huge percentage of your immune system comes from. Because let's just say that you ate something that had a bunch of bad bacteria on it, your stomach acid can often kill that bacteria. It might make you a little nauseous, or it might make you uncomfortable, but your digestive system kills a lot of the things that come in your body and keeps you safer, keeps you healthier. So having a healthy digestive system makes a huge difference. Now here's one thing that a lot of people don't think about. Stomach acid kills these bad bacteria, kills these viruses, kills a lot of the things that are coming into your system. What if you take Tums every day? What does that do to your stomach acid? Makes it worse, right? It's not as strong. So is it going to be as good for your immune system? No, it's going to not make your body able to fight as well. It also decreases your body's ability to absorb nutrients. And so, for instance, having acid reflux over a long period of time can lead to malnutrition, can lead to a weakened immune system, it can lead to a lot of different things. And so if you can get rid of the reflux, if you don't have to take the pill every day, if you don't have to raise the pH of your stomach acid to keep you more comfortable, you're going to be a whole lot healthier. So digestive system problems. The other thing besides acid reflux that's common that affects your immune system is called leaky gut. I think people have heard of leaky gut before. Leaky gut means that essentially what's happened is due to eating too many processed foods, too many chemicals, and too many negative things in your system, it actually has created holes in your stomach or your intestines that absorb food without digesting it or absorb toxins without your body really truly being able to fight it. It can take what would be a good healthy food and make it a very unhealthy food, not because it was created to be unhealthy, but because of the way we've processed it or chemically washed it or done something. It leaks through your gut and it causes you to be very inflamed and very toxic. So leaky gut's another one that needs a lot of healing, and processed and chemically high foods cause many of those things. So stress, I think everybody is aware that stress is not good for them, so we're not going to cover that too much tonight. But one thing that's interesting is they've shown, Dr. Kyle actually read us a study about a month ago, and then really this is another study from the American Psychological Association, but being positive, having hope, doing things that make you happier or that make you feel more fulfilled actually has a significant increase in your immune system. And many people have experienced that before because they've gotten sick when they were sad, just like they've gotten sick when they were stressed. Here's one thing to consider. So you have four types of hormones that positively affect your mood. Two of them you can cause by yourself. Endorphins, if you've ever heard of runner's high, I know there's some runners in here, right? Runner's high, you get addicted to running, you get addicted to exercising. That's an endorphin that raises your mood, it raises your immune system, and you can do it on your own. Another one is called dopamine. You can get dopamine from both positive and negative interactions, but you get dopamine from positive interactions that are individual, so things that you do that you're personally proud of, but that are for yourself. You can also get dopamine from drinking alcohol, you can get dopamine from consuming cocaine, you can get dopamine from a like on Facebook, you can get dopamine from the text message. That's the dopamine response. So when people get excited when they get a text message or when they get a Facebook like or something like that, that's a dopamine response. It's something that happens that they personally did. The other two types of positively influencing your body hormones, one's serotonin, which is the most studied, the most linked to depression or anxiety. That is a social hormone. So you have to interact with somebody to have a bigger release of serotonin. So something like volunteering, doing something that's positive, helping someone out, or having just a nice lunch with a friend or something, that releases serotonin. You cannot release serotonin by yourself except from pill, which obviously is not releasing it, it's forcing it to stay in your body. And lastly is oxytocin, which they talk about is like the love hormone. So when you have children, you release oxytocin. When you have these very strong interactions, you release oxytocin, and all those things have a positive effect on your immune system. So being hopeful, being positive, having positive social interactions are all great for building a stronger immune system. So this one's for all the scientists, this is the only really wordy slide. But what this is doing is kind of linking what a lot of people weren't aware of. They'll separate your different systems in your body related to your immune system. So the next slide that I'll show you after this one directly links or shows how your immune system, or your nerve system controls your immune system, and your endocrine system also affects. So endocrine system, what I mean by that is just like we talked about, those 4 positive hormones, the more that you release those, the better your endocrine system works, the better your immune system is going to be, so the stronger your body armor will be. So again, how do you release those? Let's say you're on an antidepressant, or you know those are lower. So a couple of things that you need to make a bunch of hormones. One is healthy fats. So you have to have, the coconut oils, the olive oils, the nuts. You need healthy fats, the fish. You need those things to make hormones. So if you're eating an all-carb diet or a high protein and not getting enough healthy fat, you can't make the hormones. The other thing that's essential for building hormones is vitamin D. So vitamin D, now it's easier in the summer. How many people are happier in July than they are in February? You have more serotonin probably. You have more vitamin D. You're out in the sun. Your body's creating these things, plus the positive things that a lot of people do in the summer to be happier, to be healthier. But vitamin D and healthy fats are essential. So if you don't have enough of either one of those, you can't make as many of the hormones. It's why they talk about that seasonally affected disorder and so many of those things. So they're all connected. Here's one of the coolest examples of that, and I'll tell you it's very rare to have a person that's like this. If you can see that, Masha and Dasha are Russian Siamese twins that had the perfect way to study the immune system. Now I know it's kind of hard to see, that's a picture from the 1950s, so it wasn't with the best camera. But they were born in the early 1950s, and they have 2 arms and 2 legs, they have 1 waist, they have 2 hearts, but they share the same blood system. So they had the same lymphatic and circulatory system, but they had 2 separate brains and 2 separate spines. So the only thing that they did not share was their nerve system. It's the only thing they didn't share. And so it was the first time that they realized that the blood, actually they've shown specifically macrophages or white blood cells are triggered, or their response is stimulated by your nerve system. And the reason they knew that is because if germs got into your blood, they should just make you sick if you were going to get sick, right? But one twin was much sicker than the other. They were consistently sick more often, and in fact there were many times when one would have the flu or a cold and the other would never get it. So how, if it's circulating through your blood the entire time, how could you constantly not express flu or express a cold? Well, they didn't express it because one had a healthier nerve system, and so their body over time built a stronger immune system, and therefore wouldn't get sick so often. Isn't that interesting? Yeah. Now, I'm not aware of a single other Siamese twin that's ever been born, or they've never shown another, but they studied these 2 because it was the only time that had happened. And so, again, one twin was sick much more often, and so, if you think about why should you come in and get adjusted when you're not feeling well? Because it stimulates white blood cell response, it stimulates interleukin response, it stimulates these different things that significantly increase your immune system over time. And if you keep from needing the drug, if you keep from needing the thing that doesn't create long-term immunity, every single time you do that, you get healthier. Your immune system builds every single time. Now, Christopher Reeve, flashback to your first doctor's report. Anybody remember which bone he broke? It's right at the top, between C1 and C2, right here. So Christopher Reeve, that picture is roughly 9 years apart. Isn't that crazy to think? So that's 9 years different. How much older does he look on the right there? 50. That's called accelerated aging. Now, what's accelerated aging? It means that his body, when he fell off the horse, when he broke his neck, when he broke that top bone, it actually partially severed and then bruised his spinal cord to the point where he was paralyzed. Never moved his arms or his legs. But beyond that, he needed the pacemaker, the respirator, the feeding tube. And you can't see it under his shirt there, but he has a colonoscopy bag under his shirt. A nurse would push on his colon every single day, and he'd go to the bathroom in a colostomy bag. But when he died, it was just 9 years later, and it was of an infection. It was from a weak immune system. It was from an infection. But in his autopsy, what they showed is this accelerated aging. It was as if he was more than 30 years older than he actually was. Because as soon as he broke his neck, as soon as his brain couldn't connect with the rest of his body effectively, he aged faster. His organs deteriorated more quickly. He got sicker. His immune system stopped working and therefore you can see what he looked like, how he aged. That's accelerated aging. Now, I talk about the immune system in kids. If you took your child to their pediatrician for their school physical, whether they're in 6th grade, 9th grade, senior year, whatever it is, they would have had to bend over and have a doctor put their fingers or scroll their fingers down their spine, and that's to check for scoliosis, right? Now, the reason they check for that goes back to 1981. Many of you have heard this before, that's why I said it's a little bit of review. But the scoliosis, the test is because most kids don't hurt when they have it. You can have this condition that curves in your back, pinches nerves, negatively affects your health, and they won't hurt. They won't have much pain. They can't feel their health. And so we always talk about in adults, although certainly it's great for adults to come in for wellness, a lot of times adults come in and have something. They can write down that they have neck pain or back pain or headaches or acid reflux or sinus problems or something. By the time they've just worn on their body enough, it'd be like if you went to the dentist when you were 30 or 40 or 50 years old and had never brushed your teeth. How many people would expect for the dentist to give them a clean bill of health and say come back in 20 years? Right? It's just not possible. Because it's just like that bone structure, if you're not actively maintaining it, it's going to deteriorate. Well, with kids, two easy ways to check. One is posture. If you look, not only bending over, but you notice that you'll see kids that'll have a high shoulder, or when you look at them, they'll have a hip, or when they lean forward, they'll have some rounding or some humping in their back or something like that. Well, that's an easy way to check, but more importantly, by the time you can see that, often there's a lot going on. It's already had several years to progress, so the easiest way is to take an x-ray, and that's, if you've been in the clinic, it's not quite the normal doctor's office that you might be used to when you go see your family physician or if you go see a specialist. I doubt there's many offices that see this many kids running around, yelling, screaming, playing, throwing, it's a fun, family-oriented place because, who expects kids to be perfect? It's not possible, but the reason that so many people bring their kids to get adjusted is simply because it builds their immune system. It helps them be healthy, Let's not just talk about kids. Well, how about, pre-antibiotics? So many people have taken an antibiotic. Most of this room has probably taken an antibiotic in their life at some point. Now, before antibiotics were really developed effectively, chiropractic was already around it, and they said that was the number one reason people came to get adjusted. So in the middle to early 1900s, the number one reason that people came to get adjusted was for their immune system. Now, it's so rare for people to even think that way anymore, yet that was the number one thing. In fact, in that only severely killing flu season, the 1918 flu, in Davenport, Iowa, which is about 2 hours from here, they had a more than 5,000 person study that showed that people died 1/40th of the time if they were adjusted weekly. I think it was routinely. Maintenance chiropractic people, 1/40th. You basically had a 2.5% chance of dying compared to somebody that lived in the same town that was exposed to the flu that wasn't getting adjusted regularly. Isn't that weird? It's crazy to think about. It's really just because all of us have been used to more drugs and injections and these things, that hasn't always been the case. It hasn't been that normal.